Sometimes it's not about the destination, or about the road taken or not taken. What matters most is the journey, the people you meet along the way, that shape the way you feel about the location.
The water is in the blood, you know?
Yeah.
You can't live without water.
It's a part of who you
It's a part of who I am, man.
Is tradition important here in Cochrane?
Tradition is what we're based on.
I miss home.
Yeah.
So what I do a lot now is I go down spring hunting. That's really popular.
Moose Cree has been in this area since time immemorial, as told by our elders.
I'm Alex Smyth, and this is not my story. This is, however, the story of a land, a region, its towns, and its people that time has almost forgotten. This is Postcards from Northern Ontario. Welcome to Polar Bear, Ontario. Population 5. Polar bears, and at least 4 polar bear statues. Not only do they occupy 70 acres of boreal forest, there seems to be one on every street corner, roundabout, or generally chilling everywhere. There's even a giant one waiting to greet you as you arrive. I must confess, this town of all things polar bear is actually called Cochrane. Located in northeastern Ontario, Cochrane was once a booming rail town. Now it is torn between decades. There are hints of a not-so-distant past, closed shops, boarded houses, and the present, funeral homes, and even a movie theater. Today, the people look to forge a new identity, one less reliant on rail. A quiet and serene park offers refuge to people of all ages. A moment spent staring out at the still Commando Lake lets a stranger tap into the town's heartbeat. The rattle of skateboards along the wooden planks of the boardwalk, the laughter of children swimming in the water, and the distinct clang of steel wheels meeting track. This is a symphony for the ears, the soundtrack of Cochrane. There's a story hidden here, and I want to uncover it. The first question, why all the polar bears?
The bear was originally tied into the Polar Bear Express when it originated, I believe, in 1964. They wanted to make the town of Cochrane synonymous with polar bear to promote the Polar Bear Express, and it stuck over time.
I get it. It's good to have an identity. So it's fitting that Cochrane Town Councillor Daniel Belisle and Mayor Dennis Clement greet me under the giant polar bear that is the first thing people see when driving into town. Standing about 20 feet high and about 36 feet long, this is the second incarnation of Chimo, or Chimo 2.0 if you will. Councillor Belisle explains. So where does the name Chimo come from?
It's an Inuit name, means you are welcome or we welcome you, and that's how it was adopted.
Cochrane was originally used as a summer camping ground for Indigenous people and fur traders heading further north. Then, in 1907, it was selected as a junction point for the Temiskaming and Northern Ontario Railway. It was officially incorporated as a town in 1910 and named after Frank Cochrane, a politician and merchant. Today, about 5,300 people make hay here. I'm definitely getting that small town feeling.
When you've lived here all your life, and most of the other people that are here, especially the seniors, they lived here all their lives also, and you get to know them and they get to know you.
As the mayor, councillor, and I stroll down Cochrane's Main Street, otherwise known as 6th Avenue, it strikes me that this could be like any other main street in rural Canada. While it has seen better days, it retains its early 20th century charm. That and free parking. I asked Mayor Clement if tradition is important to Cochrane.
Absolutely, it's very, very important, just like any small town in Northern Ontario.
At this point, I guess it's probably a good idea to let you know that Cochrane is 50-50 when it comes to English versus French, or French versus English. There are no language police here. Politics aside, traveling means eating. We make our way over to the station restaurant, aptly named because it's located at the train station. A pseudo diner, grill, and bar, it serves typical pub food, but it's good with fresh ingredients and generous portions. You can't go wrong. Is this a good representation of what food in Cochrane is like?
Yes, it is. This is mostly what kind of food you'll be getting in Cochrane. We have a few fine restaurants. You know, certainly if you want home cooked meals, Cochrane is the place to get home cooked meals. There's not a lot of places where you get the meat. You'll get fresh meat, fresh ground meat, freshly cut fries, those type of things, but mashed potatoes.
Mayor Clement decides on the toasted Western, and Councillor Belial and I on the triple stack turkey club with fries.
How would you kind of sell somebody on Cochrane?
I would say friendly, very friendly, very open. We're open. If you walk up and down our main street, people will say hi to you, even though you're a complete stranger. Well, certainly, if you need any information of the community, you can stop any of the local people and probably even take you to some of the highlights in the community.
Let's talk about the polar bear, or should I say elephant, in the room. Accessibility. Making a small northern town accessible may be a challenge. Like any other municipality in Ontario, Cochrane will have to meet the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, or AODA for short.
What we've done, and they've done previous councils, anytime there's construction, a new construction, as last summer we had construction here on Railway Street, so all of the curbs are now accessible. What we're also trying to do, and what we have done, is there is a community improvement initiative that the local businesses, if they want to apply for a grant, the community is providing them with a grant, with them matching dollars so that they can make their storefronts and stores accessible.
To prove practice, we need perspective. Uncovering the story of Cochrane means turning over a stone or two. Meet Dale and Janet Levins.
Watch that hose. Yep.
As a couple who both live with vision loss, what is it like living in a community like Cochrane?
Small communities have the advantage that you can get to understand the geography quite quickly. You get to know what resources are available to you fairly easily. And the nice thing for us is that everything is really pretty much within walking distance.
They walk everywhere using a combination of their canes and phone GPS. In this case, smallness breeds familiarity. However, it's not without the occasional obstacle.
I have a criticism of the my law enforcement, the parking restrictions.
Oh,
Nobody
yes, that's
pays.
bad.
That's really bad. Vehicles parked on
Over the sidewalk?
over the sidewalks and stuff, and there's no excuse for it.
Are there things that Cochrane could do to improve accessibility and make navigating around town easier?
Yeah, one complaint I've had for a long time is they have a couple of road crossings lights and on posts, and they don't have beacons. And I know where some of them are, but I don't know where all of them are exactly. And it's not really convenient to go prodding around looking for them with your cane. They're on steel posts. They're not particularly nice to, if you miss them, to run into.
I have to admit, I sometimes walk into things too. It tends to be an unpleasant experience. As it is, Cochrane is like any other town or city, large or small. It struggles with accessibility. But they are trying, and the Levins have made a very comfortable life here. Back at the station restaurant with the mayor and councillor, there's one last thing to uncover. What's up with the town's motto, wonderfully unexpected?
Things that you typically would not see in the northern community is here. You know, there's a great park in the middle of town. There's the lake in the middle of our community. We have an event center that we're very, very proud of. With a state-of-the-art hockey arena and swimming pool area. So it is wonderfully unexpected.
It couldn't ring more true. Cochrane has so far been a very pleasant surprise. And what I'm about to do next will ramp up my admiration for what this small town has to offer. Coming up,
it's great to be able to have a world-renowned facility that just focuses on polar bears and is able to do things that a lot of other places aren't.
You're watching Postcards from Northern Ontario. Welcome back to Postcards from Northern Ontario. Cochrane, yes. it is wonderfully unexpected. The beautiful Lake Commando, with its park and accessible pavilion, a serene boardwalk, and swimming area, is the focal point for this town in transition. But as I continue my journey around Cochrane, I uncover things that make it more than just a one-trick pony. In fact, there are a couple tricks up its proverbial sleeve. And, as I find out, has a prodigal son who may not have returned home, but who has transformed a nation's identity with his legacy of coffee and donuts? More on that later. But first, let's learn about Cochrane's unique connection with polar bears.
So when did the polar bear habitat open up?
Well, we opened up in 2004.
Makes perfect sense that a town synonymous with the polar bear is home to the world's only polar bear habitat. Opened originally as a tourist attraction, the habitat has now become more of a sanctuary for the bear, focusing on research and education. Visiting is still encouraged though. Dylan McCart is the habitat's conservation coordinator.
We have 5 separate enclosures. We have about 24 acres of space for the bears. Right now we have 5 polar bears. We have 4 males and 1 female.
The best spot to see one of these truly magnificent animals is at the glass enclosure. The enclosure is beneath one of the pools the bears frequent. I was standing there only for a moment when a giant male bear decided to go for a refreshing dip. Makes sense since it's about 30 degrees outside, not the type of weather a polar bear is accustomed to. The bear is at home in the water as it gracefully swims below the surface. It looks so beautiful, I can see why a seal may be lulled into a false sense of security.
We are able to house up to 7 polar bears with the capacity that we have. However, since we're a nonprofit charity, we are limited by resources. So since we function as a rescue facility, we don't actually look for any polar bears. We just take bears in that need help. So any rescues from the wild or bears from captive facilities that don't have anywhere to go, we take them in.
With a background in behavioral science, he takes me on a tour of the habitat. The first stop offers a rooftop view.
Now, the one thing I noticed with what's this polar bear's name?
Inukshuk.
Inukshuk is that his nose seems to be shifting around, so it's like he's smelling for something. How good is their sense of smell?
They have a really good sense of smell. They rely on that more than any other sense.
Okay.
So in the wild, they'll do that to find their food, find their mates, or stay away from one another. I don't think it's accurately known how far they can actually smell, but it's from miles away, feet under ice, they can detect seals.
They can certainly smell us.
Definitely.
We continue the tour walking through the Heritage Village, which depicts the Cochrane of yesteryear. Buildings, shops, and storefronts dating back to the early days of the town.
We're about 250 kilometers south of wild polar bear populations, so very natural climate and substrate that they would experience in the wild. Each enclosure is either from 1.5 to 23 acres big. They all have natural substrate that the bears can dig in or interact with. They all have water sources from pools to 10-acre lakes. And then they have a lot of natural wildlife that they can interact with as well. We have a lot of small mammals and migratory birds that come through, so if they'd like to, it's another form of enrichment for them.
By enrichment, I assume he means food.
Our bears get seal meat and seal oil, which is part of their main diet in the wild. They get moose meat and they get fish, which is mackerel right now.
So Dylan, just let's make sure not to cover me in seal oil, okay?
Okay.
The polar bear habitat is indeed a gem in Cochrane to visit. You can get up close and personal with the bears without a fear of, well, being eaten. You may not be so lucky in the wild, but you can also feel good knowing that the habitat is more than a typical zoo. Much more. They have the bears' true interests at heart without being flashy about it. Here, tourists come second, but not the experience. Trick number 2 up the sleeves of Cochrane is literally a walk through the polar bear habitat's gift shop to the Cochrane Classic Vintage Snowmobile Museum. The president, Dan Gerard, is there to greet me.
Hi, Alex.
Nice to meet you.
If I'm being completely honest, I didn't know what to expect going into this museum. Since I don't drive, I usually don't get excited about seeing vintage machines. That said, I found myself quickly becoming hooked. Climate change be damned here. The smell of oil and gas fills your nostrils. There are machines dating back to the 1950s. There are big, small, and brightly colored machines. A virtual snowmobiler's paradise. Why is it so important to Cochrane? Because Cochrane has a reputation of being #1 in the world for its snowmobile trails.
It started off that people needed a way to get out to their remote cabins and stuff and cottages and that. And it's not like cottages in southern Ontario you can drive to. Here you have to go either by boat or by snowmobile or ATV. And so, you know, this was a means to get to their winter getaway.
And just taking a quick look around the museum, you have some really interesting snowmobiles. Can you tell me a bit about the types of vehicles that you have here?
We've, as you can see, the one in the background, the Big Al, I mean, that's a very special machine. The thing is, we were trying to show the evolution of the snowmobile from where it started to, you know, what it looks like today.
To say that Big Al does not look like a snowmobile is an understatement. It is extremely wide, has 4 3-cylinder engines sticking out from its body, and a swooping wing that starts from the front of the machine, culminating above the driver at the back. It reminds me of a line from the Rush song, Red Barchetta, a gleaming alloy air car, only it has sleds. Whereas the Barchetta was red, Big Al is canary yellow. The most important fact about Big Al, it was designed by George Barris. You know, the George Barris who designed the original Batmobile? I didn't know who he was either. I asked Dan to show me a couple of the more unique snowmobiles in the collection.
Here we have a 1982 Skidoo Elite side by side.
This is so cool. I've never seen a snowmobile with seats side by side instead of behind each other. This is the perfect vehicle for a date out then.
Oh, for sure. I mean, hey, nothing like having a girl beside you
Yep.
riding all day. We have a 77 Larvin Caterpillar, Scandinavian machine, and you've got to wear skis to actually steer this.
That must not have been that easy to steer then.
Not at all. I would want to try it.
Yeah.
Dan's enthusiasm for his museum is infectious. He may have just won me over. My next big purchase may just have to be a snowmobile. Will it be a Polaris or a Ski-Doo? Last but certainly not least, you may recall Mayor Clement talking about the event center.
You know, we have an event center that we're very, very proud of.
He didn't mention who it was named after. I bet the suspense is killing you. Tim Horton. Yes, that Tim Horton. You can't say Great White North without thinking of Tim Hortons, and you can't go 2 blocks in Canada without seeing one. Horton was born in Cochrane and played his minor hockey here. Inside the Tim Horton Event Center is a shrine dedicated to the NHL superstar. I meet back up with Councillor Daniel Belisle for a quick tour.
What would you say his legacy is in Cochrane then?
I think it gives us a sense of pride that we haven't had very many NHL hockey players come out of Cochrane, but the one that did come out is
one of the best.
One of the best, exactly, yeah.
There are photos, as well as jerseys and sticks, all used by Horton during his illustrious hockey career. Lining the walls are 568 pucks, which represent each point he scored in the NHL. The very first Tim Horton franchise letter is also here, enclosed in glass. Total investment, $17,000.
So how many Tim Hortons do they have here in Cochrane?
Just one.
Just one?
Yeah, but we're quite proud of it.
They should be. Coming up,
Packing my shorts, my long sleeves, and insect repellent clothing. That's going to come in handy. Now just to clip it close. Now I'm ready for the train to Moosonee.
this is Postcards from Northern Ontario. Welcome back to Postcards from Northern Ontario. As I stand on the platform at the train station in Cochrane, the weather has taken a noticeable turn for the worse. Now, gray clouds threaten rain, and the temperature has gone from a sub-Saharan heat to a slight Arctic chill. What a difference a day makes. Fortunately, I came prepared for this sort of thing. The jacket I'm wearing will hopefully keep the heat in and the cold out. the train finally pulls into the station. Affectionately known as the Polar Bear Express, the train is the lifeline to the communities of Moosonee and Moose Factory, 5 hours to the north of Cochrane. Unless you are an outdoorsman in the realm of Daniel Boone or Davy Crockett, this is the only way up north. You can fly, but it will cost you an arm and a leg, way more than myself or the producers of this show are willing to give. So, train it is. Service began in 1964. While primarily a passenger train, it also carries all the goodies necessary for life up north, ATVs and snowmobiles, but also canoes, cars, trucks, and other specialized equipment. Back in the day, it hauled tourists, lots of tourists. Today, however, it's the residents of Moosonee and Moose Factory that benefit most from its service. Oh yeah, about the name, Polar Bear Express, it's a bit of a misnomer. Polar bears rarely, if ever, come this far south. Train travel is never any fun without a companion. So, Renee Baker of Ontario Northlands boards with me.
The Polar Bear Express is actually the only land link that exists between Cochrane and Moosonee, so it's quite unique. And we're the only flag stop train left in the country.
So what kind of impact does the Polar Bear Express have on both the towns of Cochrane and also Moosonee and Moose Factory?
The Polar Bear Express train is definitely an economic enabler. So the impact that we have is huge. We get people in and out of the far north. We get goods in and out to them. There's a mail car that's on our train. You want to get a vehicle up to Moosonee or Moose Factory. This is how it happens.
But I'm not here for the economics. I'm here for the tourism. The endless mix of evergreen trees zoom by the window of the train. This is nature's theater, and the rows of pine and other northern trees are the curtains. But mostly, I feel the isolation. The train ride, on the other hand, is pleasant, and the car I'm in is quite spacious.
We've recently had a refurbishment program on the Polar Bear Express train. So right now we're sitting in one of our accessible coaches. You've got, bright light coming in. You've got the nice seats, kind of feels like an airline seat. They're wider, there's more leg room. The accessible coach also allows for wheelchairs to be able to get in and out of the washroom.
Wheelchairs have space near the front of the car, close to the accessible bathroom. While they've upgraded for accessibility, I'm sure Ontario Northland still has more to do. How many cars are there on the train that we're riding on?
Typically there's about, 5 passenger coaches, a diner.
Wait, what? A diner? Why wasn't this pointed out to me before? Anyone who knows me knows I'm a bit of a foodie. The selection is what you might expect on a train in the morning. Fruit, coffee, cookies, juice. There is breakfast available, bacon and eggs. Since it is closer to lunch, Renee recommends the pizza sub.
These are the pizza subs I was telling you about.
Okay, I think I'm going to try one of those pizza subs, yeah.
Yeah, that's
definitely.
the one.
Perfect, thank you. Others are sprinkled about the dining car as Renee and I make our way over to the booth. With its large windows, the space is quite bright. And of course, the endless greenery continues to zoom by the window. The pizza sub is surprisingly delicious with its melted cheese, fresh bun, and tasty pepperoni. Not gourmet by any stretch of the imagination, but it settles into the bottom of my stomach nicely. This hits the spot. This is worth the train itself. Those who ride the train fit a mold. Retirees who yearn for the taste of life outside of their concrete jungles or suburban sprawl. Linda McDougall is one of those retirees riding the train for her first time, along with her husband and friends. What are your first impressions?
Vast wilderness. I've been looking for moose and bear. Haven't seen that yet.
Haven't seen any polar bears either, even though it is the Polar Bear Express.
No, I was told we probably wouldn't.
Yeah. Jürgen Desor is here for a different reason. 35 years ago, the native of Germany, now living in France, rode the train for the first time, loved it, and has brought his wife and son to experience what he felt all those years ago.
Well, let's say the end of civilization, I would say, and also the proximity of to be close to the Indian reservoirs and to the other cultures in Canada, and to see how it's like.
But as you move through the steel beast, the faces change. The real faces of the train are the locals, the true locals. To them, this rail is a lifeline, a vital connection, not only to their homes, but to the outside world as well. Moosonee is Rita Etherington's home away from home. The senior, with short strawberry blonde hair and glasses, now resides in Ottawa, but she grew up in the small northern community. Her sisters still live there.
I miss home. So what I do a lot now is I go down spring hunting. That's really popular. Fishing and all this stuff. Outdoor sports, that's what I do with my family.
The endless miles pass by, one after the other. The countryside continues to amaze as we pass over rivers and wheel by lush greenery or open plains. A flag stop or two along the way to drop off or collect one or two passengers heading further north. The name, Polar Bear Express, may be a contradiction, the clash between the isolation of the Canadian wild to the intimacy of the passenger train itself. Perhaps a metaphor for the way a polar bear lives, alone in the wild. One thing is for certain, a trip north on the train is truly an inviting experience. Coming up next,
we have a lot of stuff for culture, a lot of history in the area, beautiful scenery, and friendly people.
this is Postcards from Northern Ontario. Welcome back to Postcards from Northern Ontario. What I first notice about Moosonee as the train pulls into the small station are the dirt roads, which are now wet and muddy from the rain. This far north, pavement doesn't do well, and right now, neither does the weather. It is drizzling and about 10 degrees. Fortunately, it doesn't take long before it improves. This is the end of the line, as far north as you can go before hitting open seas. After 5 well-spent hours in a train car, scores of people gather their belongings and head off wherever they need to be. Only a wooden sign with the word Moosonee painted in black, surrounded in white, officially confirms we've arrived. This is the real Northern Ontario, and they have the flies to prove it. The mayor, Wayne Tapala, is here to greet me.
Hi, Wayne. Hi, Alex. How are you?
Oh, not too bad yourself?
Not too bad. Welcome to Moosonee.
Oh, thank you. Why don't we get started?
Let's get started.
It was 1903 when settlers from Parisian Furrier, Revlon-Frere, decided to set up shop along the banks of the Moose River, only 19 kilometers inland from James Bay. Their goal was to compete with the Hudson Bay Company, whose own trading post was on Moose Factory Island. And so, the Moose River Post was established and became the most important location for the brothers Revlon. It quickly expanded. In 1932, the extension of the railway from Cochrane to Moose River Post meant a new name was needed. Your guess is as good as mine as to why, but it was renamed to Moosonee, meaning at the Moose River. It has been Moosonee ever since.
We are a municipality. We're not a reserve. We are a municipality, but 85% of our community members, residents, are Aboriginal people from all different bands.
Actually, only one of 2 municipalities in Northern Ontario. This poses a challenge for the native people.
Once they move on this side, most of their rights are not respected.
That goes without saying. Moosonee feels like a town that is holding on, that not much happens here anymore. The downtown, and I use that term loosely, has a community center, a northern store, Christ the King Catholic Cathedral, the public school, Northern College's Moosonee campus. About the only pub I see is the Sky Ranch, housed in a nondescript building. It begs the question, why the heck would anyone want to come here?
We have a lot of stuff for culture, a lot of history in the area, beautiful scenery, and friendly people.
Good enough for me. However, as someone who is partially sighted, and this is a municipality in Ontario, I was curious to know how the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, or AODA for short, would even be feasible in such a remote northern community. It's a piece of legislation that may have been passed with only larger centers in mind, like Ottawa, Toronto, or even Cochrane.
trying to explain that to the government as well. The cost for us to do something like that is phenomenal. And we have to come up with the money, and again, the taxpayers have to pay for it.
Who's going to pay is the eternal question. Tourism is important.
In the past, it was really a big boom to our economy. Through the years, it kind of dropped off, but we are working to revive it. We look at it, mining, logging is a good thing, but it's not here to stay. But tourism should be here to stay, and I think we're sitting on a gold mine. We just have to develop it.
Wayne could be my grandfather, a salt of the earth, old soul with gray hair and goatee to match. And I sense he was eager to show me what Moosonee did have to offer. First stop is the M&R Interpretive Center. As the stereotypes go, we pull up in his pickup truck. Housed at the office of the Ministry of Natural Resources on Revlon Road, the Interpretive Center offers glimpses into the people's relationship with the wildlife and geography of Moosonee.
Alex will show you the tamarack goose here.
Okay.
Years ago, and even today, they still use them for the hunt in the spring.
Made from small twigs gathered from a tamarack tree, the Cree formed them into stylized geese, which are used as a decoy.
Now, the reason that they have the opening in the cheek, the hole in the head there, is the white cheek patch of the Canada goose. That is, with the reflection of the snow, it makes a white cheek patch.
Okay.
Now, they would leave these right out there, so they hunt every year to go back to the same area.
And were they successful with these decoys?
Oh yes, they're really, And when you look at them, when you get them out in the swamp, they're actually more of a gray color. So they're the color of the Canada goose body.
Okay, wow.
It's an assorted mix of taxidermied birds and fish, to maps, to photos, to artifacts, to VHS tapes, which I didn't think still existed. Even a polar bear hide. Wayne is eager to explain, and I'm keen to take it in. And then the mother lode, the reason this town exists today.
And then we have the different types of furs that were what really opened up the north with the trapping the fur trade. We have the beaver, the marten, and then we have the timber wolf. And this would be about a medium-sized timber wolf. And they come in a gray color as well as they come in jet black.
Oh, wow.
Next up on the tour is the Railcar Museum. Getting out of his truck, I noticed there is Cree writing on the side of the retired railcar, which was once used to haul baggage. Inside are the stories of the history of Moosonee. The antique photographs of people long gone stare back at me with their weathered faces. Wayne takes a few minutes to explain a couple of the pictures to me. I can tell he is quite proud of the exhibits. He was the driving force to have this car turned into a museum in the first place. However, Moosonee is not without its trials. The relationship between the townspeople, the Moose Cree, and the Mo-Cree-Beck First Nations, and the government is, well, complicated. Wayne maintains it's friendly.
We work together, helping each other, but we are unique and we have our own boundaries, and we have to respect each other.
Tourism was once the lifeblood of Moosonee.
When they changed the schedule back several years ago, a lot of the tourist operations folded. We didn't have enough business for an accommodation for overnight tourism. So when we used to have a train coming in with tourists and stay for 5-6 hours and go back out, they could make enough money to keep operating. Once that was cut off, they've stopped.
But things may be looking up. A new Super 8 motel is being constructed downtown. Mayor Tapala and the residents of Moosonee hope this will lead to more tourism. Moosonee had the feeling of a true frontier town. It's isolated, lonely. Visiting here gives you bragging rights that you've been this far north. A town with a storied past and an unwritten future. Coming up,
Moose Cree has been in this area since time immemorial, as told by our elders.
this is Postcards from Northern Ontario. Welcome back to Postcards from Northern Ontario. Taking a water taxi, certainly a unique way to get around. A stone's throw across the Moose River from Moosonee is Moose Factory Island. The best way, in fact the only way to get there in the summer months, is by water taxi. Arriving at the dock on the island, the first thing that greets me is the Cree Village Eco Lodge. More on this magnificent building later. But after touring the island for a little bit, I can't help but notice that there is a stark difference from Moosonee. Moose Factory is where the fur trade history begins. It was on this island in 1673 where Charles Bailey of the Hudson Bay Company established Moose Fort. The fort was highly contested in its early days because of its strategic location for trading. It was captured by the French in 1686 and renamed Fort St. Louis. Naturally, this angered the British, who recaptured it 10 years later and burned Fort St. Louis to the ground. So much for diplomacy. In 1850, the HBC staff house was completed, housing employees needed to run the outpost effectively. The building still stands today and is quite large, definitely carrying that 1850s Victorian style. Built around 1854, St. Thomas Anglican Church is also still standing, although that church has seen better days. Yes, it's boarded up now and falling apart, unfortunately. Next to it is the Gothic HBC Cemetery. Today, Moose Factory is home to about 2,500 souls, the area's main hospital, an arena, and the Cree Cultural Interpretive Center. Hi,
Hello.
Ann.
You must be Alec.
Yes, nice
Hi.
to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So you're here for the cook-up, right?
I am. I'm so excited. Can we get started?
We can go. Okay. We're going to go to the back to the shop one and start cooking.
Great. Outgoing and friendly, Ann Wesley has lived an itinerant life. According to many, she can fix just about anything. Car breaks down? No problem. Just call Ann. I would guess her age to be about 50, but I won't dare ask for obvious reasons. She can also cook. As she leads me into the Shaptuan, Cree for long teepee with doors at each end, it's a literal translation, I learn what's on the menu. Canada goose. Yes, the bird that flies above you twice a year. The same ones that seemingly take over cities and harass anyone who gets too close. Not the case for this goose, however, which was shot during the traditional Cree spring hunt, and now figuratively landing on the table in front of myself and Ann, waiting to be prepped and cooked. But first, the neck and head have to go. Now, I must warn you, this next part may be a bit graphic for some, so you may want to look away. We continue to prep the goose. Like a surgeon, Ann slices open the bird and gives you-know-who the honors of cleaning it out.
And then what you have to do is you put your hands in right along the rib cage and you go right around. Okay, and you keep going right around. It might be a little bit frozen in there, some of it. You might get cold fingers. But reach all the way as far as you can and pull it out.
And pull it all out.
Pull it all out, okay?
It takes me a minute to get my hand fully inside the slightly frozen carcass of Canada's namesake bird.
Pull it all out. Pull it all out. Oh, I hear it coming out.
While lacking the skill of Hannibal Lecter, I do manage to pull out the bird's now vitalist vital organs.
Oh, yes.
I got goose blood on my hands. I'm not innocent in this anymore. At this point, the table is starting to look something akin to a bad 1980s slasher film, blood and guts. So, in the interest of maintaining our G rating and my sanity, I take a break and tour the Interpretive Center. It's there where I meet Moose Cree First Nation Deputy Chief Earl Chichu. Unfortunately, we head back to the Shaptuan, where the memories of my first bird guts are still fresh in my mind. That aside, it's interesting to find out about the history of the Moose Cree on Moose Factory Island.
Moose Cree has been in this area since time immemorial, as told by our elders.
He explains that while the island is where they physically live, the real home of the Moose Cree is the land and the relationship they have to it.
I would say spiritual, sacred. It's who we are. Like it's being on a land, through our language, through our heritage. Example, this the environment, the food we eat, the wood. It all has some sort of significance.
As I listen to Earl in the crackle of the fire, my mind wanders back to the poor, now gutted Canada goose. Joking aside, the bird takes on a bigger meaning to the Moose Cree people.
There is a time when the goose knows when to come. there's a time when they will sacrifice, you know, their lives for our lives type of thing. It goes on and on. That kind of, even the beavers, you respect them, it'll keep evolving.
I've been on Moose Factory Island for a day now, and what strikes me is the obvious lack of tourists. In fact, my crew and I may have been the only white people there, but it wasn't always like this. Back in the 90s, scores of the aforementioned used to flock to visit the island, but alas, times have changed. The numbers may not be there, but it's still important for the Moose Cree to have visitors.
Moose Cree feel we need to share our history, share who we are, and let them know that we are here and appreciate. Like it always a pleasure to talk to, you know, people from other places, because we are curious too. Like, where are you from? What do you do? And sometimes we have problems communicating, but we do communicate somehow.
By now, you may have forgotten about the goose. I haven't, and after speaking with Earl, I have a newfound appreciation for the symbolism of this cookout. Nothing goes to waste. The head, neck, gizzard, even heart, all are used in some way or another. Hand rubs blood on the bird for added flavor during the cooking, and stitches up the opening using a small wooden stick to keep the juices in. She tucks the neck inside the body. Like Earl, Anne is guarded about the past, preferring instead to move beyond the injustices of Canadian colonialism.
What is your feelings on kind of that whole era and the forced assassination of Indigenous culture?
It happened.
Yeah.
That's what I say. It happened. We got to live through it, and we just move on now.
Once stitched up, our goose is ready to be cooked.
So I'm curious, what is this goose going to taste like after it's done?
And don't say chicken, Alec.
Okay.
It tastes better than chicken.
It tastes better than chicken? Okay,
yeah,
my mouth is
very rich.
Okay.
Very rich. It's a darker meat.
Yes.
Chicken is a light meat. This is a dark meat. And it's a really good meat.
Yeah.
We move the goose from the table over to the raging fire burning in the pit in the middle of the Shaptwan. Anne strings the bird up to hang beside the fire. A pan lined with tinfoil is placed underneath to gather the drippings, and she twirls the string so that the goose rotates in order to cook evenly. The meal is rounded out with raisin bannock, a type of traditional bread that is cooked fireside on stakes planted in the ground, potatoes, and peas also cooked over the fire. It takes about 3 hours for the goose to be cooked, but finally, it's ready. And just in time, because my stomach has been grumbling for the past 2.
This
Very
goose
good, eh?
is delicious.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so surprised. It's a lighter taste to it, almost like turkey.
But better than turkey.
But better than turkey, that's for sure.
That's right. Okay.
Oh, this is delicious. Thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome.
Coming up,
to say the very least, it's been an interesting life in some ways. It's very hard, very difficult, but now we have some challenges that we have to work on.
you're watching Postcards from Northern Ontario. Welcome back to Postcards from Northern Ontario. Moose Factory Island is truly an interesting place. The Moose Cree First Nation are not the only Indigenous people to occupy the island. The Mo-Quebec First Nation, or Moose Factory Cree of Quebec, also call it home. The almost forgotten people of the region. A sort of lost band. Having moved from northwest Quebec to follow the fur trade, they were not signatories in Treaty No. 9 in 1905. The treaty was one of 11 post-Confederation treaties that contained a whole slew of so-called benefits for the Indigenous people in Northern Ontario.
And it's been a challenging life for us in many ways. Our people lived in tent frames year-round, right up until 1980.
Only members of their ancestors, the federal and provincial governments of the time, now long dead, know the answer why the Mo-Quebec did not sign the treaty, and, in doing so, were left out of the benefits other First Nation bands receive. It's not something, however, Mo-Quebec Chief Alan Jolly harps on.
To say the very least, it's been an interesting life in some ways. Very hard, very difficult, but now we have some challenges that we have to work on.
Instead, Chief Jolly, who walks to work every morning on dirt roads while fighting off horseflies, would rather concentrate on building the future for his people.
We're asking our people now to consider choosing a community site where we might be able to build our own community. And hopefully that's something that's going to transpire.
Like Deputy Chief Earl Chichu of the Moose Cree First Nation, Chief Jolly is reserved but open, a metaphorical conflict that seems to engulf First Nations people. Inside the Eco Lodge on a rainy day, and to share the voice of the younger generation, he's brought his son, Mike, and Jean-Pierre Chabot to remind me that while the past is the past, the future will be written by the next generation and the generation after that.
My hopes for the future is our own community. We want to be able to be the masters of our own destiny. And our people have done that already. Our elders, our leadership have taken strides in order to resolve a lot of the issues that we were faced with, from the economic opportunities.
Opportunity, a word that is often used, but more often than not, abused. A more detailed look at the backdrop of Moose Factory Island may give you the impression that the word was more abused than used. But you can't judge a book by its cover, especially not when it comes to the Cree Village Eco Lodge.
Our backs were up against the wall. We had to find ways to make money, so any small business opportunity we could get into, we did that. Yeah. And with the Eco Lodge in particular, that came about as a result of trying to do something in the area of tourism. There was not enough accommodations available to be able to keep the tourists here. And so our idea was, well, okay, let's try and address that problem as an organization, Mo Quebec. So that's how we end up putting up this building.
In real estate sales, only 3 rules apply: location, location, location. And the Eco Lodge hits all 3.
The striking image when I came over in the water taxi and just seeing it kind of appear before you, it is such a striking and beautiful image, and walking up those steps, it kind of left in awe.
Completed in 2000, the building looks out to the west over the Moose River. The golden hue of the sun setting below the trees of Tidewater Provincial Park is one of the most magnificent I've seen. The building itself is shaped like a chaptuan, which, if you recall from our previous segment, means long teepee with doors at each end.
The 3 principles that we try to instill here in putting up this building is that it be environmentally friendly, that it be ecologically sound, and that it would promote healthier lifestyles.
The Great Hall, or the main dining room, is the Eco Lodge's focal point. 2 sets of teepee poles with ridgepole extending between them at the top forms the main assembly. The immense cedar and pine structure towers above guests.
I think when most people who have heard about the building come, their first reaction is, wow, I didn't expect to see that up here.
Hi, JP.
Hi.
Good to see you again.
Yeah.
Jean-Pierre Chabot meets me in the Great Hall the next day. Although not native, JP has lived on the island with his family for quite some time. The Mo Quebec Senior Development Officer knows the Eco Lodge inside and out.
People come in and they're immediately affected by the detail of things and the rustic, nature of it all. But I think it gives people a very strong impression of what's possible up here.
At this point in time, we've been pretty well self-sufficient, self-supporting, which is again an objective that we'd like to stay on that path.
Welcome to James Bay.
This is incredible. I never thought I would find myself here. This is really, truly a great experience. To some extent, I feel like I've just reached the North Pole, known to most Canadians as the smaller bay just south of Hudson's Bay. Many have seen James Bay on their high school maps, but few will ever venture this far north as I've just done. To the Moose Cree in Northern Ontario, it is their home. It is part of who they are, river people. A source of food, a highway, it literally runs through their veins.
I've also had this tattoo. It's for the rivers.
Oh,
that ended up going out to the bay. Moose Factory's here, all the major rivers. It's kind of like the water is in the blood, you know?
Yeah.
You can't live without water.
Yeah.
It's
a part of who you
It's
are.
a part of who I am, yeah. And
Well,
who we
that
are.
is truly
River
amazing.
people. River people.
Knowledge of these waterways around the bay, and there are many, is a family affair, passed on from generation to generation, as it was with my guide and captain, Michael Wesley. Google Maps can't help you here.
Right from my grandfather, and he wasn't really, he was quite old when my father was younger, so my uncle taught my father taught me, and now I'm teaching my son. Exactly where to go, up the rivers, where the routes are and everything like that, yeah.
That's fantastic.
The ride up to the mouth of the bay from the Eco Lodge takes about 45 minutes. I was hoping our boat would have been a bit larger than the skiff I climbed into. I suppose the makeshift wooden roof covered in plastic is there to keep the rain out, or the bugs, or both.
Heading out to the bay. Gotta think safety first with this life jacket.
It's a gray, wet, cool day, and the rain hits Michael's face like tiny pebbles slicing through the wind. He's unfazed though, and focused on the journey ahead. But he's dressed for the occasion. He's done this hundreds of times, and loves the clean, open solitude the bay has to offer.
You're out here anywhere you can be, you're alone and with your thoughts and peace and tranquility. It's nothing like it.
History is to James Bay like wet is to water. In case you're wondering, James Bay is named after Thomas James, a Welsh captain who thoroughly explored the area between 1630 and 1631.
Right now it's not too choppy, but I'm hoping James Bay doesn't get too much worse. Otherwise, the pizza I had for lunch might be coming back up to haunt me.
The change from the relatively calm water of the Moose River to the open sea of James Bay can be quite noticeable.
On the bay they get 10, 15 feet rolling. Sometimes you're traveling with people, you can't see them because they're on the other side of the wave. Yeah.
It's summer, so there's no ice around, only open water. Perhaps not surprising, but you never know in an area where it can reach -50. Fortunately, that means no polar bear encounters, but polar bears usually don't venture this far south. However, it could mean a close encounter of a different kind.
Beluga whales that come up the river and follow the fish around and eat the fish, yeah.
It's been about 350 years since the Europeans and the Cree native to this area first shook hands, or perhaps enjoyed the delicious bite of bannock, a traditional bread prepared by the Cree. James Bay was used as a gateway to the fur trade, making it possible to establish a trade post on Moose Factory Island by the Hudson Bay Company in 1673. That first meeting still resonates with the First Nations people to this day, and Michael is no exception.
We're still here, we're happy, you know, and all that stuff that had happened with the residential schools and everything like that. I mean, you know, it's time to make some peace, you know, live together.
Yes, truth and reconciliation. While it's not perfect, it gave an opportunity for both sides to acknowledge the treatment of the First Nations people since first contact all those years ago. There is still clearly a disconnect, but the relationship is complex. The treatment of First Nations people might be viewed as a black mark in the history books of Canada that perhaps many people are not quick to acknowledge. But Michael and many other people we met along the way in this remote northern community were quick to say that they wanted to move on, that they were happy and they wanted to enjoy life in these natural surroundings, and that in peace is the best way to live. There is a land up north, beyond the reach of most eyes, through the gilded forests and upon the river's shore. Anticipation mounting, a yearning to explore. Follow the footsteps of the first to walk these lands, echoes of ancient lore and foreign demands. The winds blew west and brought change along the way, and the sun fell when the ships found the bay. The waters crash as the river meets the sea, a constant battle for supremacy. And in the dark, man struggles for life, disoriented, isolated and scared in the night. But behind the trees, the sun will rise, in hues of yellow, orange, red, and the world will soon open its eyes. This land is for all, to live side by side. This land is for all, and it's where my heart resides. Host, Alex Smyth. Producer-director, Darcy DeToni. Videographers, Jim Devlin and Matt McGurk. Editor, Jim Devlin. Graphics, Andrew Antonello. Audio post, Mark Phoenix. Media accessibility specialist, Simone Cupid. Senior producer, Michelle Dudas. Director of production, Kara Nye. Vice President Programming and Production, John Melville. President and CEO, David Arrington. Copyright 2019 Accessible Media Inc.